Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Talking Cubs. I'm your host Ryan Davis. I'm going to be joined in a moment by my co-host Sean Sears. We're continuing our player previews for the 2019 season today, discussing Jason Heyward. Sean, do you think that there is hope from the 2018 season left over that Heyward could be a decent offensive player again in 2019?
Yeah, his Fangraph page is still holding on hope that he might find the power that he had in 2012, 13, and 14 when he first broke into league, steal bases like he used to. But I think at this point, you have to hope that I think the best fit for Jason Heyward for this team at this point would be kind of like hoping that he can maybe turn into a leadoff hitter, a good on-base guy. It's crazy to think before he came to the Cubs, the idea behind adding Jason Heyward to Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo is that the Cubs could legitimately have three 6-WAR plus players, and that hasn't necessarily turned out. At least it kind of has, but not with Heyward. He's been essentially, I mean, last year was his best season with the Cubs, and while it was filled with moments that we will probably look on forever, the Grand Slam, his great July that he had, still kind of a disappointment when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. He was putting the ball in play, and I think he was one of the players that was benefiting for a little bit from Chili Davis's approach to the game, but just kind of looking at what he did with the team and that second half obviously wasn't great. I think he was limited to about 50 games. He was dealing with some type of hamstring injury, I think it was.
That sounds like right, yeah.
Yeah. So I know he missed a good amount of games in the second half. I don't think the Cubs necessarily missed his offense that much. Defensively, obviously, Heyward probably still the best right fielder in the game at this point in terms of defense. But offensively, I think your best hope is that Heyward can maybe continue to poke balls through the field to get on base and maybe try and score some runs. Because if he can get on base, I mean, Heyward has some decent wheels, and he's smart enough to be able to maneuver on the bases to a point where he can effectively get himself in scoring position. So there's a lot of potential there with Heyward, but I would think looking into year 4 as a Cub, you're probably expecting more of the same than anything breakout for him at this point.
Yeah, I lean more on the optimistic side for him. Not that he's going to be the guy who hits 30 home runs or anything like that, but he got off to a slow start last year, just statistically. It was something that I talked about at the time on Locked On Cubs. I remember I had, for the opening day show, I had Michael Cerami from Bleacher Nation on, and we were talking about Heyward, and we mentioned specifically on opening day there was a ball that he hit that both of us kind of opened our eyes and were like, what? And it was a drive to right field. It probably went 360 feet. And was caught, in the air at the wall. It was just essentially a 2-out fly-out. But it was the kind of ball that Heyward hit with authority that you hadn't seen him do the last couple of years. And at that time, both of us were kind of like, is it weird that we're a little excited about Jason Heyward because of a few of the plate appearances that he had on opening day? And then he got off to a statistically bad start, but a lot of that was bad luck. He was hitting the ball harder and in the air. From April 19th through the end of the year, he hit 279 with a 340 on base and a 409 slugging. Those are not all-star numbers, but you mentioned he had a little bit of a slump towards the end of the year. He had been dealing with an injury or two. In general, when you compare last year's overall numbers, and especially those numbers, basically from the middle of April on, compared to what he did, especially in his first year as a Cub, Heyward was a lot better at the plate, and I have some optimism that, 280 with 340 on base and a 410, 415 slugging, that could be where he's at this year. That those numbers may not be out of reach, and that's essentially a league average hitter at the very least.
Yeah, I think what really helps Heyward too is while his bat isn't always fantastic, he does possess really good plate discipline. He knows what are strikes, what's balls. He doesn't necessarily chase a ton. He struggles with maybe breaking balls that are coming from the right side of the plate towards him, towards the left side of the plate, and that does, he's got a hole in his swing sometimes on the inside portion of the plate, and that hurts him sometimes. But he did a really good job of getting on top of balls. It seemed like in moments where people or pitchers were kind of really focusing on putting the ball in one spot, Heyward, instead of trying to pull that ball, kind of went with it a couple times and was able to find some holes on the left side of the field, was able to kind of get the ball off the ground for the first time, I think, consistently as a Cub. There was definitely some signs of hope, but I think, like you were saying, 270 hitter with a 340 on-base percentage. If he can get on base maybe a little bit higher of a clip, I think the Cubs would love to have him kind of sit in that leadoff role, because outside of that, in that lineup, there's not too many places you can put Heyward and feel super comfortable in at this point.
Yeah, I know the very first game of spring training, Joe Madden put him in that leadoff spot, and then after that he basically said, don't read anything into this. With Joe Madden, you always read everything into everything as just a rule of thumb.
Right.
So with Heyward, maybe he's the leadoff hitter this year. Maybe he earns that role. I'd love to see him in that kind of role, especially with all the things you talked about. His intelligence on the bases. He isn't a burner, but he can run and does have some speed. He's a smart guy. He can get on base at a high rate without hitting for a ton of power. So this is a guy that I feel like could fit that leadoff spot. It's just in the past I know that he has talked about how he doesn't really feel comfortable in that area. So it remains to be seen whether he leads off or whether he hits 6th or 7th in this lineup. But no matter what, it doesn't seem like you're probably putting Heyward in any of the important spots. Although I feel like he did bat second for a decent amount last year when he was having that hot stretch. I can't remember if it was June or July, but there was a month of time where Heyward was just absolutely red hot, and I think that that walk-off grand slam was mixed in there. So some really good things to take from the 2018 season, even offensively for Jason Heyward, which is something 2 years ago we probably never thought we'd even be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, 2018 for Jason Heyward was a big step forward. It was one of the first years for him as a Cub that it felt like you could trust him at least doing something offensively, where I think there was a 2-year period where we all just kind of assumed, all right, runner on first. Here comes
the ground ball to second
Yeah,
base.
Exactly. I mean, it was, and it like as much as we laugh at it, it just felt like every time that he had to really do something, teams were just able to give him something he could smash the top of him, just one hop to their second baseman. So if Heyward, I mean, getting the ball in the air is huge for him, particularly just because his frame is so big. He's 6'5", 240. The guy still has the chance to break out. He's not even 30 yet. It could happen. I'm just not holding my breath for it, and I can't imagine you are either.
No, yeah, like I said, my optimism with him is that he can just be a league average hitter, maybe slightly above that. I don't have any hope for any more than like 13, 14 home runs. Not a ton of power, but I'd be really happy with him if he could get on base, still be a great defensive right fielder, get back to being the guy who gives you maybe 3 or 4 wins above replacement. Not necessarily a 6 WAR guy like he used to be, but just be a good solid above average major leaguer again in basically all aspects. I feel like that would be something that all Cubs fans could really get behind.
Definitely, and it would make me feel less awkward when I wear my Jason Heyward jersey.
Yeah, I think a lot of Cubs fans would feel better about wearing their Jason Heyward jerseys if he would be just a little bit better at the plate. So let us know what you guys think about Jason Heyward. Are you excited about his season? Do you see 2018 as a big sign of progress moving forward? Do you think that this is basically the best that it's ever going to be? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you like the player previews, if you like the channel, go ahead and go down and click that little subscribe button at the bottom. Let us know that you like what we're doing. We really appreciate that. So thank you again, and we will talk to you again next time.